Before I read the excerpt from a book, one of my books, I want to ask you, do you know about the God Memorandum? Have you read it? It'd be worth your time. Very powerful. Okay, this is an excerpt from my book that I started 8 years ago. Be my accountability partners. I will finish it to completion this year. I was about to say this summer, this year. Her parents, talking about Leslie, the main character, the rich black girl in Bronzeville, and their parents had, like so many others, traveled the route of the Great Migration, where from 1940 to 1970, 5 million mostly black Americans left the South and journeyed north. In one of the greatest moves in modern history, her own family story was the trip, or I should say journey, from Tunica, Mississippi, up I 55 to Chicago, Illinois. The courage to leave the known for the unknown was a combination of both faith and fearful resignation. For some, it was the church bombing that killed the three little girls in 1953. For others, Emmett Till and the butchery left the saliva of terror, too. The stories and folklore and missing sons and fathers and cluttered expanse of the land made nature an unwelcome environment for colored people. They were not simply the Christmas entertainment or playing the jugaboo jar and dancing and singing after working all day, but the lynch party, where it was a place for a picnic with sandwiches tucked away neatly in woven baskets with red and white gingham napkins with jelly jars of lemonade. A family affair to some, more air to a funeral to others. Every elder of many years and the many stories told of sharecropping, which was on its face anything but equitable, and there was obviously no sharing happening. The people who were her parents, grandparents, friends, relatives, were witnesses to the social and economic injustices endured and heard of. In a way, the experiences in the South inured an aversion to poverty, and it was a deterrent to never travel that path again. It was a fate worse than death to be poor. So many of the Southerners became poster children of a sort of for Gone with the Wind and Scarlett O'Hara's vow to never be poor again. It was little wonder that this era proclaimed Chicago the Mecca for black millionaires. Places like Detroit and Cleveland also learned the lessons of poverty and the collective consciousness by the oral tradition of history, heard firsthand or vicariously served to make the Midwest a welcoming place to make life better for one's family. Really, the road to a massive fortune was on the brain, and the union of opportunity with resources made people reach for the stars. The magnet of jobs that work picking cotton or tobacco from before dawn to after dusk was a no brainer. The horror and futility of the sweltering hell that was the spirit of the predatory South propelled escape and to help anyone else who wanted to leave. The more the merrier. Apartments of four large rooms were converted to kitchenettes to accommodate three or four families with familiarity. Shucks, in Georgia, they'd resided in one room shacks with three generations of a family whose outhouse was in the yard. So this was luxury. It's all relative. And to have running water and steam heat and a cooking stove instead of a dirt floor was the promised land and an immediate jump in social stature from a slave de to a free man de facto. By excuse me. By and large, the people who traveled to the North did so because of their thirst for the justice of economic parity and eagerness for the opportunity to explore this concept of the American dream. This great experiment was fully embraced and truly believed by those of indentured servant status. The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence was that one shining hope in this land of dreams. Even if many could not yet read these documents in all their proposed magnificence, it was felt with every heartbeat. And I would add, and they wanted their children to be able to read them even when they couldn't. Those who could read were valued and charged with the obligation to relay what was necessary for survival. Juneteenth in Texas attempting to hide freedom demonstrated the necessity of vigilance. The songs of liberty sang of this liberty. Certainly, the multi layers of black soldiers from places like Hattiesburg and unheard of little towns outside of Montgomery and Little Rock were witnesses to a whole new world founded upon the fervent belief that this was their inherent right too. Returning to their overt classless stations and status, the move north was promulgated upon the fact that they'd seen and knew better and would be damned before living in the South again. The stories of being treated like a man, or better, even, as a person, were told like a fairy tale come true. The jaunts in Paris, Germany, Great Britain, and places most could not have conferred and birthed a paradigm shift for the likes of which has never been. Travel is an eye opener naturally and should increase the position of options. It was more than that. It could be said that coming back to America was literally like day and night. In their own land, men were lynched for a perceived impression or lie of looking at a white woman or looking a white man in the eye. In other lands, people of all colors flirted and simply existed without apprehension of a mob visit that night to a shack. In Paris, darkness had none of the terror of the threat of night riders with torches. The Eiffel Tower was all that was alit and shining in the dusk. The black people here didn't have to be home before dark unless they wanted to. If you want, tell me what you think and what changes I should make. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed and wonderful day.